And it's oftentimes lesbians that are getting this from both sides. Trans women are saying they're lesbians. Trans men are saying they're lesbians. Cis men are saying they're lesbians.
Trans exclusionary radical feminists, or
oh no
for short. Anybody can be a TERF, but most of the time, TERFs are cis women who identify as lesbians.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about something that is widely debated lately, and I'm not even really sure why it's still a debate. I'm seeing it all kinds of different circles over on TikTok, Instagram, here on YouTube, and that is, can trans men be lesbians? And I have a couple of takes on this and a couple of different opinions, to be quite honest, depending on how you're looking at this question and what it pertains to and who it pertains to, and socially, technically, sexual orientation, all of that. It's an interesting conversation, but I also think that this is really based in reality and biology at the end of the day. But before we get started and we jump into this today, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. I see that a number of you are coming back and you're watching me, but you're not yet subscribed. So please just go ahead and do it. We are almost at 1,000 subscribers, and thank you so much for that. Okay, so this topic, can trans men be lesbians? Now, like I said, I have two answers, right? And my initial thought, of course, is no. And the reason for that is because, well, a trans man wants to walk the world looking like a man and to be seen as a man. And as we know, men cannot be lesbians. However, we also know that trans men are biological females, and oftentimes females are same-sex attractive exclusively, which make them lesbians. It's a technicality. And sexual orientation doesn't change just because your gender identity changed, right? But then again, on the other hand, socially, when you walk the world and say this trans man is dating a woman, they appear to walk the world as a straight couple, or perhaps maybe the person's bisexual. But the point is, how it's perceived socially is different than how it is at the end of the day when the lights go down, the Barry Manilow comes on, and the clothes come off, if you catch my drift. So I find this argument to just go round and round and round in different areas and different corners of the internet. And it's really just so, it's kind of stupid. But what we're going to do is we're going to react to a couple of TikToks and get some different takes on the issue. And then I want your opinion. I want to know what you guys think.
I'm sorry, but you can't be a trans male and a lesbian. My buddy sent me a TikTok yesterday of someone claiming that they're a trans man and also a lesbian, and that they can label themselves and we can't label them, which is like somewhat true, but you literally cannot be a trans man and a lesbian. And I get actually pissed off and offended in this way because I see it as more of a disrespect. What you're basically saying is that you don't see trans men as men.
Okay, so here's the thing, is that he just said you don't see trans men as men. And a trans man is like a subset category. A trans man is a trans man. You know, this goes back to this whole idea of the activism of trans men are men, trans women are women, but they're not. And we all know that. We might perceive them that way. We might visually see them that way. And that's how they want to be seen. But we also have to remember what we're dealing with here and what a trans person actually is. You know, they've transitioned. We all know that there's biological reality behind this. But I also understand, I think, where this person is going with this. So let's continue.
And this is coming at me because I didn't go through all of this like shit just to be not seen as the man that I am today. I'm straight. I love women, but never will I claim.
He's not straight, though. He's not. Technically, he's not. Technically, he's a female. Technically, his sexual orientation is gay/lesbian because he said he loves women. But socially, he's going to be perceived as a straight guy, which is fine. Okay, that's fine. But like, let's just be real about all the things, like all the stuff and all the things. Let's just be real about all of it, instead of dancing around this stuff and making the ideology the priority all the time. And this is why people are always so confused and upset.
Claim to be a lesbian, because what? If I ever got called a lesbian or claimed to be a lesbian, my dysphoria would be through the fucking roof. Like, I toyed
Okay.
with that. I played with that label at one point in my life, and I couldn't even accept it at that point. I mean, this is just my opinion. Maybe you disagree, but I don't care.
So I completely get where this individual, this trans man, is coming from. I mean, he doesn't want to be seen as a lesbian because he wants to look like a man. So, I mean, that logically makes sense to me. It does. But again, what this does, though, is it kind of hurts homosexuals in a way, because it implies that that sexual orientation is a preference and that it can change based on what you look like or based on your gender ideology or based on your gender identity, rather. And that just isn't actually true. I mean, we spent decades trying to explain to people that homosexuality is something that you can't change, that sexual orientation is fixed. People that are same-sex attracted can't be changed. This is why we didn't want to do the whole conversion therapy thing, because it's not a choice, right? So I think that that's where some conflict comes in with a lot of this, and it starts this infighting back and forth about words. And that's another thing, is that changing the definition of words or making words more flexible or umbrella terming things is complicating the situation too, and we'll get to that.
Trans men can be lesbian.
Okay, this is one of those instances where gender ideology sort of like eats itself. See, when you take terms like man and woman and lesbian and you water them down to not have any particular definition, yeah, you can have trans men identifying as lesbians. And in this video, she basically makes the argument that, like, because the trans man sincerely identifies as a lesbian and may have, like, a history with lesbianism, that means that he can be a lesbian. But again, this destroys the definitions of these words, even in the gender ideological framework, right? Because, if trans men can be lesbians, why can cis men not be lesbians? Because the only thing separating trans men and cis men is that the trans men were born female. So men can be lesbians as long as they were born female.
Yeah, because only females can be lesbian, right? Again, it's just this like sort of circular reasoning and this weird way of trying to tip things like this or like that and look through these different lenses to say, oh, what is a lesbian? It's like, okay, well, like, how about we all look up the definition of lesbian again? And a lesbian is an adult human female who is same-sex attracted to other females. Okay, now again, we're talking about trans men. So trans men want to be seen as men. They are born female and want to be seen as men and walk the world as men. But biology dictates who you are, right? And sexual orientation, since it's a fixed thing that can't be changed, right? Technically, a trans man can be a lesbian. I am not advocating for trans men to walk around, especially if they're walking the world looking like a man, to walk the world looking like a man and say that they're a lesbian, because that's silly. And it doesn't make sense in a social context, okay? I feel like what's difficult for people that are trans in general is kind of finding what terms they should and shouldn't be using. And it's a difficult space. And that's the thing about this, is that it's not going to be easy, and society at large is only going to bend so far for you, okay? Because we're already seeing it kind of come back. And people saying, okay, we're done. You've taken it too far, right? And the majority of people aren't going to subscribe to this ideology and be okay with changing terminology, because that means it's taking something away from them. And it's oftentimes lesbians that are getting this from both sides. Trans women are saying they're lesbians. Trans men are saying they're lesbians. Cis men are saying they're lesbians. So the attack is always seemingly on the female group that is exclusive, same-sex attracted female group, or females in general, depending on the topic that we're discussing, but in particular with this, it's lesbians. So I can understand why people are like just confused, irritated, pissed off, all the things, right? And again, I feel like this person is well-intentioned. They're trying to make space for trans men. They're trying to make space for lesbians. They're trying to fit things in and make it more inclusive. Lesbianism is not an inclusive term. It's exclusive, or as some people put it, exclusionary, as we'll get into in the next one.
So deep into this discourse, I've had my fair share of back and forths and comment sections, so I think it's time I do my due diligence and I make a educational video about why telling trans men that they cannot be lesbians is in fact transphobic for visual learners. Now I have a question for you. Have you ever stopped to wonder why gay, bisexual, transgender, asexual, etc. are all umbrella terms?
What? No. They're not all umbrella terms, first of all. And that's the big problem here, is that we've made everything an umbrella term. So we've diluted definitions, right? And it's very easy to make an argument against something when everything's an umbrella term. You know, everything means something and nothing at the same time, and all the things you want it to be or not be. And it really sticks out to me. They use as an example that bisexuality is an umbrella term. No, it's not. It's a sexual orientation. I mean, see, this is where you lose me. It is people like this that are completely enamored with and engrossed in and indoctrinated with this ideology. It's become almost religious to these people. They follow it to a T, and deviation from that gets you in trouble. Let's continue.
And also individual identity descriptors, but then lesbian is a rigid box that you must fit exclusive rules to be let into. Now this is no accident. This is all the fault of these pesky little fellas that we just can't seem to get rid of. Trans exclusionary radical feminists, or
oh no
for short. Anybody can be a TERF, but most of the time, TERFs are cis women who identify as lesbians. This is all the...
These people are unbelievable in their logic. Well, first of all, I guess that would make me, because I am a cis woman, I'm a biological woman that is also a lesbian, and I don't identify as a lesbian, by the way. I just am one. Okay, I just am a lesbian. That's just what I am. We've taken everything now and we've made it so that people can, look at a buffet of labels, say, oh, I want to be this one today. Oh, I like that one. Oh, this one feels like it fits me today, but tomorrow I'm going to try on a different one. Like, I can't do that, because my sexual orientation is my sexual orientation. It just is what it is. I can't change it based on like this weird fluid thing that they try to talk about and bring into the picture. Again, it all sounds very homophobic when you really start to listen with your ear as to what they're saying.
Now, if you've been having your fair share of back and forths in comment sections this discourse season, you'll hear that people are saying that trans men, trans people have always been in lesbian spaces. And if you know your queer history, that's true. You see, lesbian has always been an umbrella term and a singular identity descriptor. But then somewhere along the line, TERFs came along, molded it into something that's completely different from what it is, and effectively made it a rigid box, excluding trans people. That's where the exclusionary comes from.
She just literally made all this up. Like, all of this is just made up. I mean, so hold on. Let's talk about this for a second, about this. Again, the word lesbian. There's such a fixation about what it means, what it doesn't mean, where it comes from, what the queer history is. I do agree with this individual that, yeah, a lot of trans men walked a lot of lesbian spaces. Buck Angel walked lesbian spaces for many years, but knew once he crossed over to the trans side that wasn't necessarily going to be an option anymore, at least socially, if that makes sense. So there's that. But then also, why don't we look at, again, like, what is the origin of this word lesbian, right? She talks about history here. So when I look this up, and I'll put this up on the screen too, it says lesbian is a sexual orientation. Yes, at its core, being a lesbian refers to a sexual orientation, specifically a woman who is emotionally, romantically, and or sexually attracted to other women. This is not something a person simply chooses. It's an inherent part of who somebody is. One of the other things that I want to say and make clear here too is the origination of this word. The term lesbian originates from the Greek island of Lesbos and its historic connection to Sapphic, a lyric poet who lived there around 600 BCE. Historical origins: Sappho of lesbians. Sappho was a highly respected poet who wrote about love, desire, and emotional bonds between women. Much of her poetry, focused on her deep affection and admiration for other women, and although only fragments of her work survive, her themes were clear enough to link her name and home to female same-sex love. In ancient Greece, people from Lesbos were called lesbians simply because of their geographic origin. It meant a person from Lesbos. Okay. Now, in the 19th and 20th century, there was a shift. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, English writers and psychologists began using the term lesbian to describe female homosexual relationships based on Sappho's associations. Over time, the term came to specifically refer to women who are romantically or sexually attracted to other women. So, I mean, it's very clear what it means, and I don't understand why they're still trying to fit it somewhere else. That we all know where things make sense logically and where they don't. Unless, of course, you have subscribed, indoctrinated yourself completely into gender ideology, which it has seeped into society and manipulated a lot of people. And I find even people who are more on the conservative end of things, I hear people saying things sometimes. I do it myself, even use terminology or say things that kind of goes against what I actually feel and think, because it's been so ingrained and put out there. And they did this in a really sneaky way, might I add. And this person, I don't think, is aware at all of what's happened here and what they're talking about, and they're also probably somebody that does not want to listen to elders, because when you're 20, you know everything and nobody else knows anything, especially older people. So let's see what else she's got to say.
I want to give it a disclaimer that it's obviously not as simple as this whiteboard can fit. There's a lot more very interesting queer history when it comes to trans people in lesbian spaces, and I implore you to please go out and do your due diligence.
She wants us to do our due diligence about what things mean. And honestly, the umbrella terms and all of that is really what the main part of the problem is in the self-ID. There is a biological reality. I talk about it a lot with some people over on TikTok, the silent lesbian and the middle gay, about what same-sex attraction is, what that actually means. It can't be changed. It wasn't a choice for any of us. So I can see how people get very offended by all of this circular reasoning and circular logic, changing and moving goalposts and definitions. It's really hurt the LGBT community, quite honestly, because they have to justify this cause, and the only way to do it is to override sexual orientation in some respects. So I really don't think this is actually all that complicated. I just think us as human beings make this more complicated than it has to be in the name of gender identity. And it never used to be complicated. It used to be very, very clear what was what. But gender ideology has conflated, confused, normalize things that shouldn't be normalized, change definitions of things that should never have been altered or moved around. So that, and the fact that people can't see that can somehow be homophobic, can somehow be hurtful to some, and take something away from others to pacify all of this is, you got to open your eyes and see that you just got to stop doing that. I've always been someone that thought that new terms need to be introduced, especially to accommodate some of this trans stuff, because you can't just live on the ideology. It's a flimsy foundation. It's already falling apart and it's not working out, and it's hurting transsexuals, it's hurting lesbians, it's hurting gay men across the board. So guys, let me know in the comments what you think about this question of trans men being lesbians, where you stand with it, how you view it. But it seems that there's a lot of back and forth about what is a lesbian, What is it a trans man? Is it not? Is it a trans woman? We really just need to come to a better understanding about how to define these things and how to be honest about what's going on and who people are. You know, I wish people had more confidence to just say, hey, I'm a trans man. I'm attracted to women. I guess that technically makes me a lesbian, but I walk the world as a man. So I don't like to refer to myself as that because that's weird. I mean, it's that simple, right? I mean, and that's all that has to be said about it. And we just need to be back to common sense. So let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll see you next time.